Hi, welcome to the Courage in Flight Show, and I'm your host, Dr. Thao. The Courage in Flight Show features everyday people who have taken courageous steps in their lives. Our hope is to inspire you to be courageous and reach for your dreams. Today, we have a special guest who is the president of the Toastmasters Get Up to Speak Club, or GUTS Club. He's also a motivational speaker and the yoga motivator. His name is Darren Dutch Martin. Now, Dutch, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me, Thao.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I have a 9-to-5 by day, but I'm also a certified personal trainer, yoga instructor, and Toastmaster nights and weekends. And I've been a Toastmaster for the past 3 years. Absolutely love the organization. It has enabled me to tap into my hidden passion of being a public speaker.
Ah, yes. And where do you use your public speaking skills now?
In Toastmasters, I teach yoga at Core Power Yoga in Arlington, Virginia, and in various locations, as well as 24-hour fitness. I teach a Saturday afternoon class at 24-hour fitness in Falls Church.
Wow.
And I absolutely really enjoy it. I wish I had found yoga 20 years ago.
Yeah? So you're called the yoga motivator, is that correct?
That's what I call myself, and it seems to have stuck. The reason I say that because you go to a yoga studio or you take a yoga class, every yoga instructor has their own different style. Some have a very advanced practice. They're able to do very advanced poses and postures. I don't. But what I can do is use my voice to enable my students to tap into something deep within them that enables them to believe that whether it's yoga or anything off their yoga mat, that they can achieve anything. So basically, when I'm teaching a yoga class, I'm channeling my inner Les Brown.
Oh, so it's not just about the yoga and the physicality, but it's also about maybe the mindset and how they approach life.
Absolutely. I mean, we go through life basically being beat up and believing that we can't do anything or we can't achieve our dreams because we live in a culture that's very negative. And so I want to make sure that when people step into my yoga class, that they know that that's a safe space for them to tap into that belief that, hey, maybe I can achieve this. And maybe this yoga class is going to help me shift my paradigm so that I can really wrap my head around the fact that, you know what, I am good enough. I can do it.
That's one of the biggest fears that humans have, is that they're not good enough. Where do you think that comes from, all this negativity?
Well, the human brain has been created to help us survive. And so it is programmed to put that fear in front of us, fear of the unknown.
Right.
And our society also instills in us through our educational system this fear of failure. In school, we're taught that if you fail, you're bad or you're not going to amount to anything. But what we have realized is that some of the most successful people in our society have achieved great things because of their failures and because that they learned from their failures. So I believe that we need to really shift our paradigm regarding failure because it's really a stepping stone towards success.
Right, yeah. So is there a place in a society for fears? How do we handle fears?
Well, definitely Toastmasters, because it helps you confront the number one fear that most people have, public speaking.
Right.
But you do it in a safe space, and it's a safe space in a gotcha world. The feedback and the support you get from being a Toastmaster builds that confidence, and it lets you know that, you know what, I can do this,
Right.
And part of the, as you know, your first speech as a Toastmaster is the icebreaker speech. Once you give that 4 to 6 minute icebreaker speech, you get that standing ovation. You get that positive reinforcement from the rest of the Toastmasters Club. And hopefully that gives you that necessary shot in the arm to keep going.
So it takes courage sometimes to overcome fear, right?
It does, and it also takes the courage to, when we're confronting our fears, we're also confronting the years of programming that we've been subjected to. And this goes back to childhood,
Right.
when our parents told us, oh, don't do that, that's dangerous, or don't do that, or don't put your hand there, you'll hurt yourself. And then those fears become ingrained in our subconscious mind, and then they translate into other things. Oh, don't become a singer, or don't become an athlete. Only a select few become an athlete. Go the safe route. Go to school, get a good job, get your education, etc., etc. Those are all important things. However, if you know that you have a calling that's beyond the traditional comfort zone that we're all taught to stay in, then there's nothing wrong with pursuing that. Because, and not only that, but you know, we're only in this world for a limited amount of time.
Right.
Why not spend that time pursuing your passion and living your truth, whatever that is? And part of living that truth is overcoming those fears that we've been ingrained to have in our lives, and unlearning a lot of the stuff that we've been taught from childhood.
Right. So is there strategies that you do to overcome these fears, to call upon the courage?
A ton of reading on motivational material.
Yeah.
I'm a huge self-help book junkie. The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, books along those lines. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Oh, yes.
Phenomenal book.
Right.
Listening to motivational content on social media, whether it's YouTube or podcasts. And I'll give you an example. Motivational speaker Les Brown, I listen to him all the time. And one day I was driving to work, and he quoted Dr. Howard Thurman, who was a 20th century theologian. And that quote was just so powerful, and basically goes like this. Dr. Thurman was, he wrote a book entitled Deep is the Hunger, and in that book he said, the ideal situation for a man or woman to die is to be surrounded by their loved ones praying for them as they cross over. But imagine for a moment you're lying on your deathbed, and standing around your deathbed are the ghosts of the dreams, talents, gifts, and passions that were given to you by life, but for whatever reason you never acted on any of them. And as you're lying there, taking your last breath, they're staring back at you with large, angry eyes saying, we came to you, and only you could have given us life, and now we must die with you forever. And so the question is, when you die, what dreams, what talents, what gifts will die with you? When I first heard that quote, I had to pull my car over, and I literally burst into tears.
Wow.
And it really caused me to reevaluate my life, and to decide, you know what? I have a gift, and I'm not using my gift. And if I'm not using it, I'm wasting it. So I need to change course, and change course now. And that's what led me to Toastmasters.
Wow. You know, just hearing that, it just gives me chills, because I've been in that moment. I've been in the world where everything I do is fitting into conformity.
Sure.
And I too had that wake-up call of like, oh, but there's inspiration, and it's knocking on your door.
Yes.
And what Oprah says is, you know, it starts out as a small whisper, and it'll knock louder and louder until you answer it. And at one point, if you don't listen to it, it'll feel like a brick is hitting you.
Absolutely. And you know what? Once you finally heed that call, once you start living in your truth and pursuing your passion, whatever it is, a funny thing starts to happen. The universe, some people call it God, some people call it infinite intelligence, will put the necessary people and resources in your life to help move you forward toward achieving that goal. That's a funny thing how that works. It's basically the law of attraction.
Right.
When you're living in your truth, when you're pursuing those things that you know deep down you were meant to do, more opportunities come. for you to grow that gift, develop it, and really, really bring it to its fullest potential. It's amazing.
Now, does this happen instantaneously? Because sometimes, when you take this leap of faith and you try something new, and there are lots of obstacles along the way, is that a signal that you're on the wrong route, or how do you know?
Well, you know what? It could be a signal to really when you're faced with hardships and challenges, sometimes you have to ask yourself, okay, is this what I really want? Or how bad do I want it?
Right.
That's the thing, because life will test you. Life is not going to make it easy for you, but that's where the growth happens. If it's something that you truly, truly desire, then whatever obstacles come your way are just going to help you grow into the person who can overcome those obstacles, thereby getting closer to that brass ring.
Yeah, I think you're right. I've heard a quote where they say, everyone will face different type of problems, and you get to choose which problems you want to entertain.
Exactly.
Yeah, so now I know that you have a son, right?
Yes, my amazing 8-year-old son, Luther.
Right.
He means the world to me.
Yeah. So how do you train him? You say that many of these fears that we have comes from childhood. What are the things that you're doing as a parent to make sure that he lives up to his full potential?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. Well, number one, the fact that he knows that his dad loves him to death, that his dad is in his life. I spend that necessary time with him, whether I'm helping with his homework or talking to him about whatever, or playing with him on the bed, or buying him his newest and biggest dinosaur toy. My son's the family paleontologist. Our house is like Jurassic Park. We've got so many types of different dinosaurs all over the place. But hey, he's an 8-year-old kid. Let him live it. Let him do his thing. So, but the most important thing for me is to set that example for him. And then number one, his dad is in his life, and his dad loves him to the moon and back, and that no matter what happens, his old man's got his back.
So is there a way that our audience can connect with you?
Yes, my website is www.articulationllc.com. I'm also on social media, Dutch Martin, the Exterior Minister. So just Google me, you'll find me.
And they can reach out for you for motivational speaking and for yoga instructor and personal fitness. Is that right?
Absolutely. And if you're interested in Toastmasters, Toastmasters.org, Guts Toastmasters, Annandale, Virginia. We meet every Saturday morning in Annandale. So if you want to overcome that fear of public speaking in a safe, supportive environment, give us a call.
Dutch has prepared a special performance for us. This is his contest speech for the Toastmasters International Speech Contest at the district level. Here's Dutch Martin with his speech, A Sense of Urgency.
Phalanges, metatarsals, talus, tibia, fibula, patella, femur. Those words represent the first time in my life I experienced a sense of urgency. One that not only sparked a lifelong love of learning, but also taught me a thing or two about what you lose by fitting in versus what you gain by standing out. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow bone aficionados, let me tell you about the time I memorized all 206 bones of the human body in 3 days. As an 11-year-old sixth grader in my hometown of Cleveland, Ohio, one day my mother told me that we were moving to Birmingham, Alabama, so that my mom could take care of my grandmother. Later on that month, Mom and I packed up and relocated to the Deep South, where I had to enroll in a new school, make new friends, and for the first time in my life, learn to speak with an accent. My next challenge as the new kid in school was getting caught up on all of my schoolwork. Case in point, 6th grade science class, where the bearded, stoic science teacher named Mr. Ezel was teaching the class the various systems of the body, the nervous system, the muscular system, etc. By the time I arrived, the class was on the skeletal system, the lovely bones. Apparently, after almost 3 weeks, none of the students had studied, nor could anyone recite all of the bones of the body, and Mr. Ezel was not happy. At that moment, I felt my first sense of urgency to learn the skeletal system as quickly as possible and would use the upcoming 3-day weekend to do it. Now, before the age of the internet, there was the age of the encyclopedia. My grandmother had a beautiful leather-bound set in her living room china cabinet. On a Thursday evening, I took them all out and spread them across her dining room table. Then I spent all day Friday, all day Saturday, and all day Sunday delving into the bones. I drew pictures, drafted diagrams, and took copious notes. Monday morning arrives. Mr. Ezel asks for a volunteer. I timidly raise my hand. He looks at me, strokes his beard, then motions me to the front of the class next to the 6-foot-long poster of the skeletal system. He hands me the pointing rod. I take a deep breath and begin. Phalanges, metatarsals, talus, tibia, fibula, patella, femur. The lumbopelvic hip complex consisting of the sacroiliac, sacrum, coccyx, and ilium. Phalanges of the hand, metacarpals, carpals, radius, ulna, humerus. Scapula, clavicle, sternum, rib cage. The bones of the skull consist of the mandible or jawbone, the maxilla. The 3 smallest bones in the body located inside the ear are the malleus, incus, and stapes. Moving on up, we have the frontal eminence, parietal eminence, the temporal bones, and the occipital protuberance. Finally, we have the bones of the cervical, thoracic, and lumbar vertebrae. A look of utter rage comes over Mr. Ezel's face. I'm thinking, oh my God, did I miss a bone? Then, just as Dr. Bruce Banner becomes the Incredible Hulk, Mr. Ezel becomes the Incredible Reverend Ezel. With a big southern dose of hellfire and brimstone, Reverend Ezel proceeds to put the rest of the class, to use a modern-day phrase, on blast. Y'all should be ashamed of yourselves. I've given y'all 3 weeks to learn the bones of the body. And this young man, I said this young man does it in 3 days. Y'all should be ashamed of yourselves. Granted, I did not make any friends that day. But here's what I learned. See, we're smarter than we think. But oftentimes as young people, we sacrifice our intellectual potential for social acceptance, which is exactly what I did for years afterwards, by cutting school and goofing off in class instead of applying myself academically. Why? Because I was in the grips of a second, common, yet more pernicious sense of urgency. I wanted to fit in. Then one day, seeing the path I was on, it was my high school French teacher who put me on blast. Monsieur Martin, he said. In all of my years of teaching, I have seen so much talent and potential wasted because promising young people like you chose to fit in instead of stand out. Is that what you want, monsieur? At that moment, I experienced my most powerful sense of urgency to date, to stand out from the crowd and become the lifelong learner I was meant to be. From that point on, that's exactly what I did. And because of it, I also became the first African-American male student in the history of my high school to graduate at the top of his class. I could talk about my other accomplishments since then, college, graduate school, the Foreign Service, etc., but here's my point. Remember that 11-year-old kid from Cleveland? Well, ask yourselves this question. If that young man, I said if that young man could memorize and recite all 206 bones of the human body in just 3 days, what's your sense of urgency?
And that's all the time that we have for today. Keep being courageous and reach for your dreams. See you next time.